In the morning,
When I rise, when I rise, when I rise, wanna rise holy. When I rise, when I
I can remember when my grandma and my mama would recite poetry. In fact, all of my family recited poetry. So we had all of these kinds of things that were around us. There was not a time that church didn't mean that we saw ourselves as viable people. Even in the midst of the social kinds of impediments that we were told to be careful of, that we were told to be aware of. Yes, we had lynching. Yes, we had people dying. Yes, we saw the Ku Klux Klan do all kinds of mean and heinous crimes. Yes, we know about the bombings that took place in the churches around. We know about those things, but I also want you to know that we never stopped climbing. And there has not been one of those that are in our rear view mirror that have ever stopped us from moving forward. So as we look at who we are and whose we are and what we can do and what our capabilities are or are not, I want you to know that sometimes all we have to do is just think about changing the script. Change the script. And what is our script? Our script is we can. We have. We do. It is not necessarily compared to what is fair, because life didn't tell us it would be fair. It told us that it would be challenging for us, and our endurance would meet those challenges. And so as I think about who I am and how I used to tell the story to people when I would travel And they would say, well, it seems like it was really, really hot in the South, wasn't it? Yeah, well, it doesn't seem like it. It was really, really hot in the South. It was physically hot from the weather, and it was physically hot from some of the disturbances that were pervasive in our communities at all times. We knew that there was at any point somebody could be killed. We knew that there would be a framing of what seemed like um, uh, us being an incompetent people. We knew that. We knew it. But we had the people around us who would tell us, can't nobody change who you are. They didn't make you. And we are people who were rooted in a belief system that made us know, and I don't have any reservation about telling you that that belief system for most of us was rooted in our Christian way of life. And I don't say religion as much as I say way of life, because we held on to the notion that no man could do for us like God. We held on to the notion that nobody gave us this brain but God. We held on to knowing that nobody gave us the empowerment of our physical limbs but God. And we understood that the kinds of relationships that we formed with each other was a part of not our suffering, nearly as much as it was a part of us knowing and kindling ourselves in the warmth of relationships that could not be broken. That's why today, if I were to decide that I wanted to go back, right back out there in Rembert, South Carolina, and I wanted to just sit at a table and have a meal, I wouldn't have to be invited. I could go, because those relationships are still very real. Very real. There's no such thing as not having time for each other. That is not a part of the purview of my lifestyle. But I tell my story because I want those of us who are generations after me to know that the disconnect that sometimes we feel even amongst ourselves is almost something that is born out of us not knowing our story and not being connected to the generations of ancestral beauty that has been ours for years and years and years and years. And I don't want you to lose that. I don't want you to lose it, because yes, we need money. Yes, economic power is important. Yes, education is imperative. But none of them should ever supersede the development of relationship, because there is so much protection, psychological, emotional protection, when we don't separate ourselves out. Never be ashamed of where we came from, because I don't know the stories of all ethnic groups, but I can tell you that the American ethnic Black people can tell you that our souls look back and wonder how we got over, but we got over locked arm in arm, making a difference and continuing to rise. A few minutes ago, I told you about the genius of who we are. I think one of the things that happened that I learned about when I was teaching the humanities back before many of you were born who are listening to me now, there was something called the talking drums. And what I found out about the talking drums was that the sound and the tempo there were communities all over Africa who had learned a certain sound is a certain word. It's a certain sign, not a word, but a certain sign. So if there were trouble coming towards, let's say, the people in Ghana, they said there was going to be an uprising, and somebody had heard about it. Those people could even be in Senegal. They could be in Tanzania. They could be in Kenya. But the drums would tell the Ghanaians, trouble is coming. They could even tell them the day and the time if they had that much information. The drum. They knew how to beat that drum to make that story be told, and it would resonate over the continent. In America, the women had learned cornrows from Africa. They brought them here. And they were so ingenious that they would use the way that the cornrow was actually braided to tell folk when they could escape, what route to take, what time they could go, how they could leave the plantation. They could even let them know if they were going in groups or if they had to go singularly to whatever the next station would be. The ingenious, taking what we had and making something of it, was something that surpassed the conversation or the intellectual experiences of other ethnic groups, especially the white folk who were trying to suppress us. The language was not one that was oral. The language was one that was either hearing or visual, but it told the story. What genius. What genius. So now I want you to listen to the talking drums a little bit, and I want you to see the cornrows. If there was a bun, if you see a bun, it means not yet. If you see cornrows parted straight down, then it said that you leave in the morning. If the cornrows looked like they had curves in them, then they actually gave the route that you were to go. Oh, if that isn't genius, you tell me what is. And the thing that is so funny about it now is black people are the only ones using cornrows. That is so hilarious to me. When I really realized the genius and the way that we learned to communicate in front of our oppressors and be able to move. That's a way that we demonstrate continuing to rise. We are a people who are continuing to rise, and we can't lose that ingenuity. We can't lose that kind of creativity. Being born and laden with issues that are mundane and that are directly related to the psychic of a systemic racist oppressive system. We have to think outside of that box as our ancestors thought outside of that box, and be able to communicate with the creativity that we are blessed with, not with the suppressive notion of being angry and bitter and doing the same thing to them that they do to us. That gets us nowhere but death. That gets us nowhere but depression. That gets us nowhere but the reiteration of an oppressive system that wants to keep us down. But I sit here today telling you what I know to be true, because I'm an example of how we got over. I didn't come out of electrical air conditioning. I used to tell folk the story of my house being air conditioned because I talked about the slats. You know, the boards were so wide apart in the house that in the wintertime it was cold and in the summertime it was hot. And in the seasons that it were not cold or hot, it was very, very comfortable. So we had air conditioning, but it just wasn't electrical. We have to learn how to laugh as we appreciate what we did have so that we don't get so bitter about what we don't have. And then I want to suggest through my research and the reason that I wrote this book, I want to talk to you about the table talk of poetry. I told you before that I come out of a family who always recited poetry. And one of those poems was called, If You Think You're Beaten, You Are. And my grandmother used to tell us that all of the time. And my mother would say to me, don't you ever, ever forget that we are overcomers because we don't give up. And if you spend your time talking about what you don't have, you lose time being creative about building what you can have. Those are the kinds of things that were said to me, to my cousins who were brothers to me, to my family in general. What do you mean you can't? What do you mean you mad and you're going to get back at somebody? What have you done that makes life better for you? What have you done that makes life better for your family? What have you done that makes life better for your community? Who have you shared what you have with? Oh, you have a sandwich? How many ways can you cut that sandwich? And everybody can have a piece of it who's around you. How do you learn how to share and to give? Those are the fundamentals of a people who were not ignorant. And I can say to you that many of them are probably not non-readers. They just didn't read English. They didn't know the English language. But let me tell you something. That didn't make them ignorant. That didn't make them uneducated. It made them just like the slave owners, people who didn't understand each other's cultures or languages. So if we want to declare that we come from a people who were unlearned, then we can say that to be the truth about the slave owners as well. They knew as much about the languages of Africa as we knew about English. They knew as much about writing the languages that our African ancestors came from as we knew about English. They knew as much about the culture of African life as much as we knew about the culture of this North American life. So if ignorance is the peace, then ignorance is the absence of knowledge. The absence of knowledge. So we were all ignorant because we lacked the knowledge of the culture that each of us had. And unfortunately, we were placed in a position here where we made their culture be raised to the dominant area, to the dominant life in this America, in this North American continent. But fortunately, it didn't happen without our genius. So when we look at who we are and what we've done, it's not about fair or unfair. That isn't what it's about at all. It's about just is. And I don't have to walk around with my head down. I don't have to walk around because my skin is black. I don't have to walk around because my hair isn't down my back and be all upset. I don't have to walk around because I have thick lips and a prominent nose and, yeah, I have a voluptuous buttocks. But the beauty of who I am is in my mind, not in the declaration of somebody else's determination of who I am. Because the sustaining factor for each of us has to be in direct relationship to understanding that we are born as we are born. It's not good or bad. And one of the things that has happened to us as a people is that we have made ourselves try to imitate the life so long of somebody else. We were swayed to believe that the closer to white you looked, the more beautiful you are. And that played out in our community for a long time. For a long time. And what we don't realize was it initially began when our parents, when our mothers were raped. And for children to have a better life when they came and they were born and their whiteness was overshadowing who we were in our physicality of blackness, then for a better life, they were pushed into the white society. You've seen stories, I'm sure. But it wasn't because they were more beautiful than we were. It was because there was a creative way to give them a different life from the one that we had, with the understanding that many of them would come back and make life better for us, which they did do. Which they did do. There are stories, there are table stories, even if they are not written down stories, about families who came back and gave. In my case, I had a great grand aunt. My maternal great grandmother's sister married a man from Scotland. She looked like a white woman. So she moved to Scotland. And do you know that one of the benefits of that became a part of my household that I didn't even realize or recognize how important it was the fact that I never ate off of anything in my house, in any house that I ever lived in, and was responsible for or was taken care of in my childhood all the way through my own responsible adulthood, where we didn't eat off of plates. We didn't eat off of paper plates. We didn't eat from plasticware. Every day, 3 times a day, our family sat and ate. We ate breakfast, we ate dinner, and we ate supper together around the table. And sometimes there was no room on the table except elbow room, but we were there. We drank out of glassware. You know why? Because that lady I told you about that moved to Scotland sent those things back to her sister, who was my grandmother's mother. And my grandmother and her sisters were taught how to set tables and how to make family time be meal time, because there's love in sitting together over a meal. Yes, over a meal. Move from the cotton fields to the table. Move from the cornfields to the table. Move from sharecropping to the table. Move from farming to the table. We moved, and before we left in the mornings to go into those respective places, to the table. We also moved to the table because we didn't know if we were always going to come back. There was so much that was against us as a people. We weren't sure that whoever was sitting there this morning would be back for the next meal. So we took advantage of relationship. We took advantage. Now for the next few minutes, I want to just share with you a poem that my grandmother taught all of us, her children, and then me. And I'm not sure that the others of her grandchildren learned it, but she would say it all of the time, and I share it with you now. It's Invictus by William Henley, and yeah, Q's, Omega Sci-Fi Bras. We know that it's your poem too. Out of the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be that I've changed, that says my Almighty God, for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud under the bludgeonings of chance. My head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the minutes of the years find and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate, and thank God, I am the captain of my soul. I can't tell you how in my most despairing moments in my life, that poem would come to me over and over and over and over and over and over again. And the more I said it, and the older I got, and the more experiences that I had that were circumstances that were challenging, the more that poem resonated with me. And another thing I will share with you that she would say, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. And so there were moments in my life when I wanted to have a human being that I could trust in, including myself. But I had to rely on the reality that had become to be a fashioning part of my life. That when I can't trust man, when reason in this human realm is too cluttered with the issues of life, Black people knew that there was a spirit beyond each of us in the human that made sense in our lives, that was always active. And so we learned how to trust in the God of our understanding. Now, next week, we will share from the book, much more readily than we have today, examples of what this story continues to give. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening. And until next week, God bless you.